This video is to help you as you work the Lab 2 backyard pool assignment in your course. There are 4 steps. You need to make sure you read all the information on this page. Then to print out a copy of the lab, which you'll need to do, you need to click on the Lab 2A Backyard Pool Lab. Once the lab opens, you need to make sure that you print out a copy, because you'll need to work your work on the lab before you enter your answers in Canvas. You need to understand what this lab is going to ask you to do. You're going to build a pool in your backyard that has a certain dimensions. The pool has a dimension of 20 feet by 35 feet and will be surrounded by a deck which extends 3 yards from each side. So as you see in the diagram, the inside little rectangle represents the pool. The outer rectangle is going to represent your deck. So you see the dimensions of the pool given. You have to decide how are you going to figure out the dimensions of the deck. Well, since it extends 3 yards, you're going to take the length of the pool, have 3 yards added to this side, 3 yards added to this side. Before you can do that, you got to remember to change yards to feet so that you have all the same units of measurement. You'll see you have 2 diagrams. This is a top view of the pool with the deck. This is a side view of what the pool looks like. The pool has a shallow end, then it has a drop off, then it has a deep end. That means you're going to have 3 different little parts of the pool to work with. I've added some notes to your slides to help you understand what you're doing here. The pool is 20 feet by 35 feet, has a deck that extends 3 yards. So the first thing I had to do was I had to convert 3 yards to 9 feet. The way you do that is 1 yard is equal to 3 feet, so 3 yards would have to equal 9 feet. And now you can see that the deck, which is the outer part of your diagram, is the original length of the pool plus 3 yards added to each side. The same thing for the width. It's the 20 feet wide plus 3 yards added to the top and the bottom of the pool to get the total deck length. So you have to find the dimensions for the deck first. And these are the formulas you're going to use. It's the length of the pool plus 3 yards from the left and 3 yards on the right of the length. And the same thing for the width of the deck. It's the width of the pool plus 3 yards from the left plus 3 yards from the right. So find that out first before you continue on any part of this video. You will have to know the dimensions of the deck from the 2 formulas below before you can continue on and answer question 1. In the side view diagram of the pool, you'll see you have a little rectangle that makes up the shallow part. I'm going to call this part A. Has this particular width, this length or depth, and then we're going to find out the width in a minute. Then you have a part B, which is in the shape of a trapezoid. Then you have a part C, which is in the shape of another rectangle. So the pool part can be broken up into a rectangle, a trapezoid, and another rectangle. Just remember that. You're going to have 3 parts of the pool to be able to find the rest of the questions. You also need to remember that when you break up this pool side view into 3 parts, that each one of the widths for all 3 of the dimensions is going to be the 20 feet. You'll need that number later on in the problem. This page contains the questions you're going to have to answer. There are only 5 questions, and you'll see beside of each question I wrote where you're going to need to find the information. And question 1 is going to be from chapter 8. Question 2 is section 9.1. So what we're going to do is we're going to do each question. I'm going to give you a hint of how to solve it. The first question is how many square feet of wood we need to cover the decking area of the pool. The decking area of the pool is the outer rectangle that we saw from the first drawing. Remember, it extends 3 yards or 9 feet off each end of the pool. So we found out our dimensions for the outer rectangle, which is the deck. We know our dimensions of the area pool for the pool. So we have to use our area formula for a rectangle, which is length times width. Length times width for the outer rectangle, the length times the width for the pool. Once you've determined these 2 numbers, you subtract them. That'll give you your deck area. Now we're going to go to the second question. We've got to find out how much water it's going to take to fill the pool. this is where we look at the side view. I said you're going to have it broken up into 3 parts. Your shallow end is in a little rectangle. Your middle part is a trapezoid. And your deep part is going to be another rectangle. So you have to find the volume for each one of those 3-dimensional shapes. A 3-dimensional rectangle, a 3-dimensional trapezoid, and a 3-dimensional rectangle. Again, you'll have to look at section 9.1 to make sure you find all the area formulas. You're going to use some of the area formulas to be able to find the volume formulas. So you have to break the pool overhead view into 3 parts and find the volumes of each part individually. Then you'll add the 3 volumes together to get the total cubic feet of water needed to fill the pool. Once you do that, now you're going to be able to go to question 3. All right. Question 3 is going to ask you about the filter. The filter was that little in the drawing shown here. Your filter has a radius of 2.5 feet. So remember that. 2.5 feet is your radius of the filter. Now the part A question for number 3 was, the filter has to hold at least 1/100th of the water that fills the pool. So to determine this, you're going to use the answer from question 2, and because that's the total volume of it, and since we only want to know 1/100th, we'll take the answer from question 2, divide it by 100, and that'll tell us how much water has to be in the filter at all times. Once you know that, then you're going to come down here to part B. Now I gave you the formula. This is the formula you're going to have to use to do part B. We have to find the height of the filter required to hold this amount of water that's talking about in part A. So the volume is going to be the answer from right here, part 2A or 3A. Once you find the volume, you know that pi is 3.14. Your radius is given as 2.5, then you got to square that number, and the height is what you're looking for. So plug in the volume number, pi is 3.14, radius is 2.5, and square it. Once you know all those numbers, then you should be able to find the height of the filter. And remember, we have to round up to the nearest foot on the filter. So if we get a decimal answer, we have to round up to the nearest whole foot. So just remember to do that. So your answer is going to be like 1 foot, 2 foot, 3 foot, 4 foot, etc., etc. It's not going to be a decimal answer as far as the number you're going to use here. When you perform your calculations, you may get a decimal answer, but remember to round up to the nearest foot. So once we have the first 3 questions done, now we're going to go back to chapter 8 when we're doing perimeter. The perimeter of the pool has to be enclosed in a fence for insurance purposes. So to find out the number of fencing, we have to use the outer rectangular dimensions from the front page as the length and the width of the fence to find the perimeter around the deck. So go back and look at your outer rectangle, the dimensions that you found that you used in question 1. You're going to use those numbers for your perimeter formula for this rectangle. Because remember, your deck is in a rectangular shape. So remember what your perimeter formula from chapter 8 is. Now once you have questions 1, 2, 3, and 4 done, you have to make sure that you have them all correct, because you're going to use those in question 5 to find the total price or the total amount needed for this project. Now what you can do is, if you'll work questions 1 through 4 and you want me to check your answers, send me a scan of your answers and your work shown so that I can check your answers and make sure they are correct. I'll have to have at least a day to be able to check your answers and respond back to you. So do not wait till the last day to try to do this lab. Once you have made sure you have the right answers in questions 1 through 4, now you can continue down and do question 5. You're going to use your deck area from question 1, and each square foot is $2 per square foot. So take your deck area and multiply it by $2. Your total amount of water is coming from question 2. You're going to use that number, multiply it by $0.50 per cubic foot. Your filter is $100 per foot. The number you're going to use is in question 3B, and then multiply that by 100. Your perimeter answer is from question 4. So the perimeter footage times 15.50 per foot will give you the cost of the fencing. And then the final question is going to be the total amount. Total amount of the project is going to be the cost of the deck, plus the cost of the water, plus the cost of the filter, plus the cost of the fencing. Once you've added all those up, then you should be able to get the correct amount of what it's going to cost you to have this deck built around your pool and enclose it within a fence. If you have any questions, just make sure you send me an email in Canvas. Again, if you want me to check your questions 1 through 4 to make sure you have the right answers before you do question 5, send me a copy of your work with the answers highlighted so I can be able to check them. This lab is due, and then you have to enter your answers back in the Canvas answer sheet. Once you've completed the lab on paper, then what you need to do is go down to the Lab 2A answer entry sheet and enter your answers. You'll have a 1 attempt and 1 hour time limit to enter your lab answers. So you must have the lab completed with all the answers noted on your paper before you ever go down here to the answer entry sheet. Since you're only going to have 1 attempt and only 1 hour to do it, to enter your answers, that will not give you enough time to open the lab, open the answer key, and do them one at a time. You must have it done before you ever do the answer entry sheet. All this has to be done by the due date as noted in your checklist of assignments in your Canvas syllabus. It's also going to be noted in an announcement for next week so that you make sure that you know when this lab is due. This lab counts as part of your grade, and we're getting close to the end of the semester, so you need to score as high as you can. If you have any questions, again, email me through Canvas. Good luck on the lab.